Hello everybody and welcome. I am filming today on New Year's Eve because I've been reflecting a lot on 2023 and my greatest achievements and some challenges and what I'm proud of this year, and I wanted to share that with you. I was supposed to go and celebrate the new year with friends this year and so not sit down and film, but I've come down with a cold and it's not that bad, but I didn't want to get my friends sick, so I am staying in today. I've got a giant mug of seasonally appropriate cinnamon tea with a large dollop of honey to help my throat, and all will be well. So in this video, I wanted to first reflect on my personal achievements and big moments and even challenges of 2023, but if you'd like to skip straight to the makes, I understand, no worries, and I will put timestamps below so that you can skip straight to the sewing and knitting, and no offense taken. This year was a big year for me, because if you've been following, you probably already know, but I got married this year in May, and that was a project that we'd been thinking about and talking about since I'd say like 2018, 2019. We definitely put this project on hold for obvious reasons, but then in 2021, in September, we decided to get engaged. And my partner and I have been together for over 10 years. So in France, it's not taboo to build your life with someone and be with someone without getting married over the long term. But it was important to me especially because being a foreigner or being someone who immigrated to France, most of my family and friends from my childhood and even young adulthood are back in the US, and they had never had the occasion to come and celebrate with us or meet my husband's family and his childhood friends. And so it was not only to declare our love for each other and commitment, but also to celebrate all these people in our lives whose love and friendship helped us to become the people we are and be capable of building this relationship of love and respect together, and so to honor them as well. And it was so cool to have my family here. This was also the first time that my family, my mom and dad, have been here to France. I've been here for about 14 years, and I've imagined that day or that trip for so long. It was so beautiful to have them here, and I'm so happy that we were able to share that time together. We actually were able to, after the wedding, explore Paris a little bit so I could show them kind of my daily routine, where I live, what it's like for me, my favorite spots. And then we were able to go and rent a house and stay for a week in the south of France, in Provence, with my husband's family, his mother and sister and her boyfriend, and spend time together and really get to know each other. So they had never met before, and so to be able to meet in person, even though there was a bit of a language barrier, but we helped. That was so precious to me, that they could meet and spend time and create memories together. And so that was such, oh, I'm gonna cry. That was such a beautiful moment, and I feel so lucky to have had the opportunity to celebrate that with all of my most loved people, most beloved people, and I'm still really happy that we were able to do that. This year I also made the very difficult decision to stop teaching. So it's not my full-time job. I work in publishing full-time, but I was asked a few years ago to teach the English and Publishing class at the master's program where I got my master's to the students there, and it was an opportunity that I didn't want to give up because I had originally taught English when I came here to live in France. I taught English for 3 years while I got my bearings and learned French and figured out what I wanted to do with my future. And it's something that I missed a little bit, having students and being able to not only teach them English, but teach them the confidence to speak a second language and make mistakes. And especially for the students of this master's program, I wanted to transmit to them the confidence and courage to take on this profession because it's not always easy. And so I said yes, and I started teaching in 2020, which was interesting. But after 3 years, it got kind of repetitive in the lessons that I was giving, not in the lesson plans. I loved creating the lessons and evolving them and adding based on the students' feedback and making them as enriching as possible, working on the rhythm and the level, and it's something I really enjoyed. Especially, I still have ideas for classes that I'd like to design for the master's program, but oh well. And I really enjoyed the exchange with the students in the first few years, but the thing that really got to me was that those classes, the attendance was obligatory, and so for the handful of students that were very, very motivated and that I enjoyed teaching and working with, there were also at least a handful, if not half the class, that didn't want to be there. And after a while, I just didn't want to keep teaching people who didn't want to be there. It's mentally and physically quite draining, and it didn't help that the school is an hour and a half away from where I live, so the commute was very, very long and the pay was very, very low. And so after 3 years, I figured I had gotten everything out of it that I could have gotten, and I didn't want to go on to become jaded, and I wanted to give them the best of me, and I discovered that I just couldn't give that anymore. I was bored and disgruntled. Some of the students were actually very disrespectful, especially in the last teaching year, and I decided to stop. It was just getting too mentally draining on me. So that was a very difficult decision. I think that I enjoyed being a mentor for those students. I enjoyed giving them the experience, and especially with learning a second language, I thought that I had the insight to give them some tips. And I think that I know that they appreciated it, the ones that did work and that did want to learn. But I wouldn't say I regret it, but I do think it was a difficult decision for me. But now I have all of that creative energy that I can put into my projects at home, especially this channel or my sewing projects, and that's also a plus. So I don't regret it in the end. This year I was also able to travel a lot for work, and that is such a treat. It's part of the reason I love my job. So I work in foreign rights. I handle all of the foreign rights for the house that I work for, all by myself, which means that I look for foreign publishers to publish our books in their languages in their countries, and then I negotiate the contract. And so I usually go to London and Frankfurt every year. But in addition to London and Frankfurt this year, I was able to go to Taipei and Tokyo. Taipei for the book fair at the end of January, and then Tokyo to meet with Japanese publishers of the kinds of books that I sell. And both trips were amazing. I took a few days off on either end to be able to explore both Taipei in the beginning and then Tokyo at the end. And I think Taipei, I had a really hard time imagining what Taiwan would be like. I had been to South Korea, Japan, and China before, but Taipei was its own identity and its own feeling and city, and it was beautiful. I think what marked me the most about Taipei, and that I still think about a lot, is how kind the people were. I was definitely foreign, and I got a lot of staring, but it wasn't unfriendly staring, and a lot of people took time out of their day or would approach me and talk to me. For example, this one time I was getting on the bus because the bus was very cheap in Taipei and I highly recommend it for getting around. I get onto the bus and the bus driver looks at me with a big smile and he says, "Welcome." And it was just lovely. And that's the sort of welcome that I got from a lot of the people there, and it just warmed my heart. And so I highly recommend going to Taipei if you can. It's a really lovely city, and I had a lot of fun. Tokyo was also very interesting. I've been once before with my sister and my now husband a few years ago, and it's such a huge city that I could spend weeks there and not be able to discover all of the different neighborhoods of Tokyo. But that's where I was able to go fabric shopping, and I filmed a video on fabric shopping in the Nippori fabric town in the northeast sort of section of Tokyo, and that was a lot of fun. So I will link that video here too if you'd like to check that out. But yeah, that was a lot of fun to make, and I think that I'd like to make more videos like that as well. Maybe in Paris, for example, but we'll see. The rest of this year was relatively calm after so much activity in the first half. We were able to go away for summer vacation. My husband only for a week. I have 2 weeks of obligatory vacation. Our office is closed for 2 weeks in August, so I have to find something to do. So for the first week, we went to the northwest coast of Brittany in a town called Roscoff, which is right on the coast, and it was beautiful. Rainy, very rainy this year, which is a surprise. I think everybody was really surprised at how much it rained this year in Brittany. But we had a lovely time, and we had a really beautiful view from the apartment that we rented of the ocean, and we could watch the tides and the sun coming up and going down, and even though it was raining and we couldn't really go out very much, it was still restful and beautiful. And then the second week I was invited to spend a week with a friend who lives in Biarritz, which is amazing because I'd never been to the southwest of France in the Landes region, and I'd never been to Biarritz, and so I was really, really excited, and she and her partner absolutely spoiled me rotten. And we went to the beach, we went walking, we went all over the place. They took me to a fireworks show. I ate such good food. It was such a great trip, and I'm very thankful to them, and I would very much like to repay their kindness someday. And then at the end of October, we were able to travel traveled to the US to go see my childhood friends on the East Coast, so in the state where I grew up, Connecticut, and spend time with them and their families, and that was lovely. We spent a lot of quality time together, and I feel so lucky to be able to do that and to be able to come back and see them. And then we flew to San Diego and spent a few days with my aunt and uncle, who spoiled us absolutely rotten, and it was a lovely time, and we were so taken away by their generosity. This is a common theme this year, I think, and yeah, that was really nice. And then we traveled further inland to spend about a week with my family, my mom and dad and my brother, who live kind of in between Los Angeles and Palm Springs in the desert. and that was lovely too. I went on the hardest hike with my dad that I've ever done in my life. That was a bit of an accomplishment and a challenge. I'm glad I did it, but that was painful. And I got to spend a lot of really quality time with my mom and my brother and my dad, and so that was really, really nice. And then another thing this year that surprised me was I read a lot. I read about 77 books this year, which is astounding to me. Since I moved to the suburbs of Paris, I have quite a long commute to get to work. And so on days when I do go into the office, I have about an hour of reading time on public transportation, so there's that too. But I find that since I diversified the kind of reading that I do, so before, because I studied literature and I work in publishing now, I would read a lot of very serious literary fiction. It's something that I love, but often the topics treated within those books are very heavy and very difficult. And so oftentimes I would read them very slowly and then after need a break because it was just, so emotionally difficult to get through. And so I started diversifying, like adding in, I really like reading romance as well, contemporary and historical romance. Or I started in a book club with some of my childhood friends, and we read a thriller this year, and I've never really read thrillers before. And then I did try a few young adult titles, especially the really big ones that are coming out now, because sometimes I think young adult is a genre that's developing really quickly and going in different directions and very progressive, and I really love seeing what the young people, not to date myself, but what teenagers are reading now and the kind of messages and values that are being transmitted to them, because it's just really a lot of times amazing, and I would have loved to have that when I was a teen. And sometimes as an adult I can enjoy them too, on an adult level. I'll stop talking about those, but if you would like to check out my 5-star reads this year, I will put up on the screen all of the books that I absolutely adored this year. I was really lucky to have so many amazing reading experiences this year, and so I highly recommend these books if you are looking for something to read too. To speak to the creative aspect of this year was definitely a little bit more challenging, mostly because I had one really big project, and if you have been following for even just a few months, you probably already know, and you probably are a little bit sick of it, but I'm still very proud. I made my wedding dress this year, and that definitely eclipsed at least 6 months of 2023, both in the time commitment that it required and concentration. And so my greatest project this year was definitely my wedding dress. And I have worked on an entire series on how I made my wedding dress, which I will link here, but the final video is almost ready. I want to include parts of the wedding in it, and getting that footage in and finding music and everything is a bit difficult, so I promise you it's almost ready, and I will get it out very soon because I do want to show you my wedding dress in its final form. This was such a huge project, not only because it was difficult, but also because I had been thinking about it for a really long time. This is something I've been thinking about since I'd say probably 2018 as a project that I'd really like to tackle, and I started researching different kinds of dresses and wedding dress construction techniques, even researching haute couture kind of techniques for finishing or creating structure within the dress. And then in September of 2022, I started working with Camille Saint-Léger, who is an independent wedding dress designer and who makes dresses, custom dresses for other people, or she proposes to help you make your own wedding dress. And she had just started that proposal not long ago when I contacted her, and she helped me design the dress and design the pattern, and she was there to help me with any questions. I will link her Instagram and website here below if you'd like to check that out as well. That was a great help, and we started working on the concept so in September of 2022. So that means I spent about 9 months actually making this dress. And something that has been really challenging for me is accepting its ephemeral quality. So not only the fact that you only wear it one day and I have no other occasions to wear it to in the future, but also the kind of fabrics that I use. So tulle is very fragile, and the bottom few inches of the hem of all of the layers definitely got a little beat up and will never be their original color again. That's a little bit difficult to accept because I spent so much time keeping it off the floor and in pristine condition. So yeah, I've been battling with that a little bit because usually when I make something and I put so much effort and time into it, I want it to last not a lifetime, but a few years. So that's been a little bit strange. But then I'm really glad that I can make it last through this series that I'm creating, and that I can share my experience and the techniques or tips that I learned along the way with you. And so I hope that that series is interesting to you, and I'm really glad that I'm able to share that here with you as well. I'm not sure if I'll be able to gift it or pass it on to someone else in the future, just because given the nature of the garment, the fact that it was built for my body specifically by me, and then also the state of the tool is means that it probably won't be able to be repurposed, but I will definitely keep it as a memory of that great project and great day, and I think that that for now suffices. The second project that I'm really proud of this year is the Laura dress, and this is a pattern by True Bias. I made this pattern for my birthday, and it was an excellent birthday dress. I made this dress in the mystery fabric that I bought in Tokyo from Tomato Fabrics in Nippori, and I thought at first it was a viscose, but someone in the comments of a previous video mentioned that it could be a silk, and from the weave and the way it behaves, I think they're right. I think it is a silk, but it didn't get damaged in the wash when I washed it as though it was a viscose, so I'm happy about that. And I really love the way that it looks and drapes. It did kind of thwomp around my legs a little bit because it's a very heavy fabric, but it didn't make noise, so that's fine. It's just from the feeling around my legs. And then for the pattern itself, the empire waist was definitely a little bit of a risk for me, just because empire waists don't always look good on me, and so I am very cautious about making them, making garments with empire waists, but I think it turned out really well, and I'm really happy with this dress, and it was lovely to wear out with my husband on my birthday for my birthday dinner, and I think it's going to get a lot of wear in the future. And then the next project that I'm really proud of is the Una dress by Sew Over It. This dress is a pretty easy to make dress, but what made it so special this year is the fabric that I used for it. This fabric was gifted to me by Mr. Tissu a long time ago, with no obligation to post or talk about it. I've had this fabric for years and I didn't know what to do with it because it's so loud. But then I thought that this dress would definitely display it quite well, and I wanted it up near my collarbones in sort of like a really classic sleeveless design, and so I went for it, and I'm really glad that I did because it is stunning in this dress, and I really loved wearing it this summer, and I'm so excited for next summer to be able to put it back on and wear it some more. The next project that I'm really happy with is the Donovan skirt that I made out of what I call my mermaid fabric. It's because the fabric has really beautiful tones of blue and light yellowy green. It just reminds me of the ocean, and then it has a slight silvery shimmer to it, which is kind of like a fish scale, and that's why I call it my mermaid fabric. And so I made this Donovan skirt because I know that the Donovan skirt is something that I reach for a lot in the summertime or spring or even early fall, as something that I can wear really easily, just casually on the weekends or around the house or even to work. It just works for all situations. It's the perfect skirt for my wardrobe. And so I knew that if I made this fabric in this skirt or this skirt in this fabric, I would get a lot of wear out of it, and I did. And I'm so excited to wear it some more once the weather gets a little bit warmer. I love this fabric and I love this pattern. And then I have a knitting project that made it to my tops list, and I'm really proud of this one because it took me a very long time to finish. It is the Cornwall cable knit sweater by Two of Wands, and I made it in the heavy merino in the cloud colorway by Knitting for Olive. And I have already been wearing this sweater quite a lot, but it's especially the technique of creating those mock cables that I really worked on and helped me through difficult times when I was mentally overburdened or just tired. I was working on this sweater. It even came to Taipei and Tokyo with me to keep me company. And I started working on it in November 2022, so this project took me almost a year to finish, and I'm really proud of it. And I think that my sweater making has gotten a little bit better since I started about 2 years ago, and I'm excited to see what I'm going to do next with this skill. And then for this sweater, it keeps me nice and warm, and it's nice and squishy, and it's going to get a lot of wear between now and springtime. And then I had one really big, surprising sewing fail this year, which doesn't occur very often. Like, I do make mistakes, but not such big mistakes. And I wanted to share it with you because it happens to everybody. It is the Iman skirt by Just Patterns, and I wanted to make it out of the wool fabric that I showed you in my Fall Makes Plans 2022, so over a year ago. And I had just enough to make this skirt. I wanted to make the lined version, and oh man, it went so wrong. First, I made a mistake cutting it out. I cut out two, I think, left pieces instead of one left, one right. There are so many pieces to this pattern. If you do make it, be very vigilant about cutting it out. And then I couldn't figure out how to attach the lining to the front and back vent. And this isn't so much the pattern instructions, although they are very sparse, which is also in the name of the company, Just Patterns. This is a common problem for me with lining and vents. There's something about it that I just don't get and that I need to work on. But I just could not figure out how to attach the lining to the vent in a clean way, even trying to figure it out on my own and doing research on my own. And then I discovered that I couldn't fit the skirt up over my hips anyway, so it was just way too small, unsalvageable, and I ended up throwing it away, and I felt really bad. It turned out that I had printed the pattern too small. I've never had this problem before. I always select 100% to print my patterns, and I always work with PDF patterns, but for some reason my printer printed about 4% too small and had been doing so, and I caught it with this pattern. So that's why it didn't fit over my hips. Nothing wrong with the pattern, it's just I printed and traced an entirely wrong size. So yeah, that was a bit of a bummer. I spent a lot of time on that, and I do want to make this pattern again in the future. I've worked with Just Patterns before. I've even worked as a pattern tester for Delphine, who is the owner and solo operator of Just Patterns, and I know that she puts a lot of intention and work into her patterns, so it's absolutely not her fault. It's mine. But yeah, I'd like to work on this one. I love the style of the skirt, and so eventually I will find the courage to pick it up and work on it again. And then I have two honorable mentions that I wanted to talk about here before I go. And the first one is the Brooks jeans by Helen's Closet that I made very recently. I created a sewing vlog of this project if you'd like to check that out, but I haven't worn it so much, and that's why it's on my honorable mentions list and not in my top. It would have been in the top just based on the effort I put into it and how proud I am that I created something that I can actually wear, because jeans are a challenge for me. Anything having to do with the lower half of my body is a challenge for me. I don't like fitting that area. If it's not a skirt or a dress, it's more complicated. And so I'm really happy with the fixes and the solutions I came up with working with that pattern, because there were a lot. And in the end, I do have these jeans. I think that I haven't really worn them yet, and that's why it's on this list rather than the top, because they're very tight. I know I need to wash it and wear it a few times before determining whether it's too tight or not, because they will relax over time, and I think that the fit is spot on. It's just really tight when I sit down because it's non-stretch jean, and I'm not sure if it's, I don't think it's the fit. I think it's just that maybe I don't like non-stretch jeans. So I do need to wash it and wear it a little bit more, and I want to wait until the spring summer to wear these jeans, because the color is so light that it doesn't really correspond to my cold weather clothes and the color palette that I have of the clothes that I've made for this season. It corresponds much better to my spring and summer wardrobe, so I think I will wear it a lot more, and then maybe it will be in my top list in the future. And then the last honorable mention that I wanted to talk about here is the McCall's dress, the M7947, that I made in a blue linen, and I love this dress as well. I didn't get as much wear out of it because it's a little bit too casual and girly and feminine for me to wear to work, for example. I definitely wore it a lot at home, and then especially going to the beach. I wore it as a beach cover-up. It's so loose and airy, it's really, really nice. And I felt very comfortable, but also very girly in it, and I liked the way I felt. But yeah, I really love that dress too, and I'm happy I made that one. And there you have it. Those are my top projects of 2023 and my biggest personal moments as well. Today I'm wearing my very last make of 2023 that I sewed up in one day, which was surprising, and it is this Sew Vert Estelle dress in this really lovely dark green stretch velvet that was a pain to work with. So I'm very glad it's finished, but I will talk all about that in a future video, in my future Winter Makes video, so you can get all the details very soon. I would love to hear what your greatest challenge or achievement was this year, whether that be a creative project or in your personal life. I do enjoy reading the comments, and you often inspire me, so thank you very much for being a part of this community and for watching these videos. I appreciate you very much. I wish you lots of creative inspiration and much happiness and all the best for 2024, and I will see you again here soon. Bye-bye.